And if you want to know the ultimate nature of the universe, it's emptiness. To copy the Buddha, because
And when would you say you got into speed? Because I know it, I feel it. You're someone who likes to be fast.
Yeah. Well, I broke my arm on a motorcycle in kindergarten.
Wait, in kindergarten?
In kindergarten.
Okay.
And I already felt like, like it was life or death serious riding from a kindergarten age. So I guess I wanted to be fast, since I was a little kid. But my dad likes hot rodding and modifying cars, to be much faster, engine swaps, supercharger swaps.
Things are so different, right? Now you're pretty much, it's not just dipping your toes, you have your whole life in electrification, in EVs, and
That's
even
right.
in end of life.
That's right.
I mean, on a personal level, like how is it different? How is electrified mobility and getting around different for yourself? Is it the fun? Is it the convenience?
It's all of those things, and there's also a point where I used to, people put up with a lot of poor user experience from gas engines that you don't actually recognize how terrible of a user experience it was until you have something else.
Yeah.
And I used to accept working on my two-stroke motorcycles carbs all the time, and I used to accept that on my Gixxer 1000, like, there was always something needing replacement, clutch discs or whatever was going wrong at that time. And in an EV powertrain, the simplicity is incredible. I like the expression, any idiot can find a way to make something work by adding complexity. But finding the fewest number of stages of power transfer, mechanical failure, and power losses. Every time you have power transfer, you have experienced power loss. And so in an internal combustion vehicle, you kind of have this kind of a laughable Rube Goldberg of energy conversion losses from compressing air with this fuel mixture and starting the combustion process prior to top dead center, so that your ignition timing advance work is doing counter torque production, as the piston's still rising, and then this flame kernel grows and builds pressure, and you experience losses that are significant, radiance losses, thermal conduction losses to this housing, and then
it
it
kind of disappears, right? With EV powertrains.
That's right. What do you think of having an e-bike?
It is such a different experience. You can pedal when you want, when you feel like it, but there's throttle, and it just goes. Woo! What do you think is important to people who kind of want to move into EVs? Do you think it's about the experience, like the way Archimoto is doing it with the fun factor? Do you think it's the price? Because in the long run, the cost is going to be lower? Or do you think it's just an unavoidable trend because you can't stay in fuel?
I think for me, I was a hot rodder questing for max acceleration and maximum thrill and experience, you know. And I started pursuing internal combustion optimization, wanted to be a Formula One engine designer, and went through schooling based around fluids and thermodynamics to try to optimize. In fact, ironically, the chemistry that I was taking was with respect to try to build better racing fuels and or racing lubricants for internal combustion engines.
Oh.
And at that point, somewhere after 6 years or so of wasting time doing that, I realized if you make a perfect internal combustion engine, your theoretical maximum, if you make a frictionless engine with perfect thermal barrier coatings on all the surfaces of the heat exchangers, and expansion chambers, you can't beat something like 65% of the conversion to mechanical shaft power from your thermal, from the energy in the fuel that you burned. And for this reason, since they still have the same, this means the downside of this is you have that 35% waste heat that no matter what you do, you have to deal with. And in an electric motor, your losses, your temperature ceilings are similar. Like aluminum in your piston melts around 660 Celsius, and aluminum in motors, and copper in motors, copper melts at 1080 C, but magnets demag at different temperatures in rotor and go through Curie temperature transitions. But essentially they both have similar operating heat ranges. And so if both machines have similar operating heat ranges, but one has, loss inefficiencies that can't beat 35%, and one has loss inefficiencies that, the motor in the zero is over 97, maybe over 98%, at its efficiency peaks, meaning only 2% of that energy that you're converting to shaft power is wasted as heat you have to get rid of. But if both things have similar temperature limits they can achieve, then you see that one has, you're like, wow, one is, 30 times more power dense than the other, and maybe higher even. And that's when I realized I was barking up the wrong tree trying to perfect internal combustion.
And then you moved, well, not moved, but you kind of kicked things off at zero. And I saw your bike. That is your bike, isn't it? Parked outside at the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've done quite a bit in building out the electric drivetrain?
Yeah. I was a part of a really great team at Zero, and honored to be a part of that team. We created, the battery and the battery topology, and we had partners with Ferrisys Energy that were so critical in helping us get a cell that was optimized around the motorcycle power needs and energy needs, which were both very high, while meeting pretty incredible safety test standards too. The safety performance is phenomenal.
How long were you there at Zero?
6 years.
Wow.
And it was quite a transition.
Yeah.
And at the end of my time there, I realized Zero was in a really good state, and I wanted to help other companies arrive at that good of a state as well, and so
actually that triggered a thought that I had, a memory, so-called. I know that you've done quite a few explosion videos on YouTube. That was way earlier, but that was pre-zero, right? That was, in fact, that was early days of YouTube.
Yeah,
it was.
I tested lithium-ion batteries as a recreational thing in my spare time.
Probably not recommended to anyone.
Yeah, just buying them out of my own paycheck, which was very small at that time, and testing them because of my own curiosities, and I've never stopped since then. But what has stopped is that I don't get to put them on YouTube anymore, because now they're paid tests for clients instead of.
What do you miss in that time when you were just messing around?
I loved not having to meticulously document and measure all of the results, because when it's just for your own curiosity, you don't have to do like statistical analysis and probability and variance and everything.
Any big mess ups that you can share about?
I lost my eyelashes and eyebrows, many times. Some of them are on YouTube videos. There's one where it was a camera like this RX100, but it was an early Mark Gen of the RX100, and I rushed in to save it right as the next cell went off, because the first cell blasted it with fire, and so I rushed in to save the camera. Second cell blew up, and that took my eyelashes and eyebrows.
I didn't get your eyeball, that's good.
Yeah, I was really glad. Retrospectively, I should have had a face shield on.
Probably, you should have a shield in front of the camera as well.
That was, when you're not doing it as a professional and you're just spending your own money to do it, unfortunately, you usually skimp on personal protective gear, because, it's not the company's budget to buy all that safety gear for you, right? But unfortunately, your lungs and eyes get just as damaged whether you're doing it for money or not for money, and so, retrospectively, I should have taken it more seriously and protected myself. You get hydrofluoric acid fluorosis that scars the inside of your sinuses and your lungs, and I've definitely scarred my respiratory tract from many years of testing before I had the proper safety equipment. But now I have the proper safety equipment, and I'm so grateful.
But you don't have the lungs anymore.
Yeah, now I need the proper safety equipment to live. Yeah.
Oh man. There's it's weird, because we started our conversation earlier today at the office, finding out that we are fused vertebrae buddies.
Yeah, that's right.
In the neck as well,
right
in the same spot. And you told me a bit more about these accidents, but to me, it's the things you like to do is often reflected in kind of like the injuries that you have. People who hike a lot probably have knee problems, right?
And hip problems.
Yeah. So what apart, outside of the battery space, what do you like to do?
I love both skydiving and wind tunneling, but I don't have my AFF yet, just because I've been busy.
Wind tunneling?
It's when you there's a chain called iFly is maybe the most popular wind tunnel,
indoor,
but we've tried many non-iFly tunnels too that were great. But
is that like indoor skydiving?
Yeah, it's where you've got 4 500 horsepower electric fans underneath you with this mesh of cable, so you can't fall down onto the fans, thank goodness. And they adjust the fan speed on giant variable frequency drives to these big direct drive induction motor blowers, and the air recirculates above you in a wind tunnel, so that with some flow straightening vanes at top and bottom, and some laminar flow vanes to make the corners more efficient, they recirculate this airstream, and your body has a terminal velocity at which if I dropped you from any height, you wouldn't exceed this rate at which you're in balance with aerodynamic drag and that 9.81 meters per second squared accelerating you down. So when these forces reach equilibrium, your speed accelerating towards the Earth becomes a constant. And
I love
in the wind tunnel, you get to sustain this rate of equilibrium where you're falling at the rate of your drag.
Can I just pop in a quick question?
Yeah.
When you're in the wind tunnel, do you actually imagine all these processes happening?
Okay, when I first started, I thought about how to thrust vector with my hands and what the wind would look like coming off of it. And it is a complete train wreck where you smash into the walls and wreck.
Because
you have to actually
be focused?
Get muscle memory, and it's like kind of a flow state thing where eventually your arms and legs know what to do in the right responses. I say know what to do, but the last time I wind tunneled, I scorpioned really bad and hurt myself. So they don't know perfectly what to do all the time, but I was doing flip transitions from front to back, and I over-rotated. And anyways, if your aerodynamic drag position is lower than the wind speed, you accelerate towards that cable mesh fast. And if it's higher than wind speed, say you're flaring out in a high drag position, then you boost up towards the ceiling, you know, and you can crash into either one of those. But I was doing flip transitions and tube crashed into the floor.
That's you know, one thing that I really appreciate that kind of going on this journey, meeting people that I've come to know in various industries, definitely mostly tech, deep tech related startups. It's occurred to me that I kind of lose out a bit not understanding the science enough. And because there's a different appreciation. It used to be a chore for me, and I didn't enjoy the sciences. I enjoy photography, I enjoy the arts, I enjoy reading, meeting people, talking to people. But it's such a different field because anything, any circumstances, you can break down and appreciate those things, right?
Oh yeah.
Like temperature in the drink,
That's right.
how things fry, what you feel going on the bike, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
And I don't get to see that side of the world, even though it's right there in front of you.
Well, when you mentioned the art side of it, you know, there's a level above understanding the free body diagrams. Remember, all the physics that I have is an approximation based on human confusion and misunderstandings. You know, if you looked at a physics book from 100 years ago, we could point to every aspect in the physics book and we could say, today we know this was human fantasy and confusion of these other effects that we now know about, right? And we could show that every single statement in that book has a root in human fallacy and delusion and fantasy of misunderstanding their observation, right? But today we look at our physics book, you know, if you use the scientific method, right, which is where you use previous test examples to make a prediction on a future outcome, right? So if you look at all of our previous science books and you go unanimously, they haven't contained one shred of truth yet. But then we look at the ones today and we say, this is truth now, right? But so far, each one of those truth falls as a new instrument, as a new measurement method, you know, as a more precise ability to time things. You know, for example, we show the quantum effects and relativity with entangled photons, you know, over long distances now. And that used to not be something we could prove conclusively. It was a theory, you know, and it was considered quackery until our ability to instrument it improved and improved and improved. And now, you know, timing with femtosecond, picosecond timing, you know, we get to see, you know, special relativity effects, you know, quantified very precisely beyond a shadow of a doubt, right? But there's problems in this level as well. It's just that we're only now getting the tools to grasp visibility to see the problems in the next level of understanding. At no level was it really a understanding. You know, if you want to know the ultimate nature of the universe, it's emptiness. You know, to copy the Buddha, because if you look at our galaxy, we have this spacing between our solar system and the other galaxies, and it's mostly empty space in between this. And if you look at our own solar system, you know, we have 93 million miles away is the sun, you know, and we're orbiting and we've got a moon, right? But it's nearly all emptiness, you know, in between these points. But now when you look at, we look at the Earth itself, you know, and what it's made of, the beach and the sand and everything around us, our bodies. And they're just, you know, we have the illusion of solidarity because our hand doesn't drop through the table, but it's not because it's colliding with something, it's because there's fields. You know, we are suspended in, you know, if you take a molecule that's composed of atomic particles, right, and the atomic particles are composed of subatomic particles, and all of these have levels of emptiness between them, to the extent that if you try to put your finger on, even if you're holding like a gold coin in your hand or whatever, and you're like, what exactly is this? If you look closely enough, it's just emptiness moving down at all layers with no level of solidarity. And the smaller parts, this is one of the weirdest things too, is quantum physics effects like delayed choice, quantum eraser, and of course the double slit experiment don't just work with light. They work with, I've seen it done with the C60 and C70 molecules, which is 60 and 70 atoms of carbon arranged in this geodesic configuration, and because of this, this means it's a probability of existing even at this molecular level, not just at a light level, right? So where is the transition between the macro quantum state, the micro quantum state, and our universe, right? When you're looking in the illusion of solidarity, it may only be consciousness dependent on its arising, depending on how closely you're looking.
My mind is melting right now. There's so many additional questions the more you question.
Oh yeah.
Right?
In fact, as soon as you learn something new, it has a perimeter of new unknown material. And so this is why some of the most wise mentors I've ever had in my life, like guys who have one of my mentors did the Voyager probe power supply, which is a Stirling engine on an isotope generator, and it's still running, making power today, like 20 years after its service life was supposed to end. And if you ask him, are you an expert in thermo or electronics or anything, be like, oh, he's like, I struggle by here and there or whatever, And this is a guy who's,
at the forefront of it.
Yeah, absolutely the leader and most accomplished. And the funny thing is we get people who intern, and they'll be like, I'm a fluid dynamics expert or whatever, I'll be like, wow, that's a bold claim, having mentored in fluids for a long time, and taken all the fluids for civil, mechanical, and physics. Took all three of those major sets of fluids because I wanted to design Formula One engines, and I was obsessed, Even slurry flow mechanics I was obsessed with. But
what is the
anyways, the reason they're applying and they're saying they're a fluid mechanics expert, because they took a course.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not joking, that's the qualification. I'm like, have you done any projects with fluids? Have you ever done anything fluids related in your life? I took this course. And those are the ones who say they're experts, whereas the guys who've spent a lifetime in fluids are greatly humbled by the nature of turbulence, transonic flow, Mach, boundary layer shear, slurry flow dynamics, and they would never claim to be an expert.
In your field, and you mentioned this one word which I want to dive into. So I do have two questions, but the first one is, in your field and what you work with, what are you most humbled by?
Oh man, batteries teach me new, it's almost like a joke now where I try not to even make predictions on a test, because I'll be like, okay, I'm pretty sure this test, it's not going to propagate, or it's not going to run away, or whatever I think it's going to do or not do. And that works on the other side of the coin too, when you're trying an initiation method, when you're like, every cell I've ever tried this on, it goes into thermal runaway in like 10 seconds, and then you try it on some new critical test when it's crunch time, and there's like, $10,000-$20,000 of equipment on the line and everything, and it won't go into thermal runaway,
and you're just
right?
praying for something.
Yeah, cells are counterintuitive in so many ways. They give you these rules to go by, like in chemistry.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's kind of funny even. In chemistry, they have things like the solubility rules and all these different rules, right? But the rules actually just have this asterisk after it, which is like, rule applies except in cases of voltage gradients or abnormal ORP or whatever the weird conditions are where these things have exceptions, and different elements that have exceptions. And batteries are just, since they have this large electrostatic field gradient across them, they're a little can of exceptions, because they've got the electricity to drive chemistry forward for side reactions that normally would never be present if there wasn't that electrostatic field to make it happen, to give it the activation energy to overcome these non-intuitive directions for chemistry to move. And so, batteries are, what's funny is, if you would have asked me, is a battery complicated or whatever, when I left college, I would have been like,
cathode, anode, separator.
I would have like,
I know the parts.
Yeah.
I did the course.
The graphite of the anode intercalates with lithium ions during charging, and you reduce this into the cathode, and using the oxygen of the metal oxide as an oxidation provider, right? And this gives you 1 electron per lithium ion you reduce through this process, and in charging you drive them back into the anode, and that's the like cocky.
That's page 1.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And what's funny is
that's not page 1. That's the index page.
That's right.
The context page,
that's right?
Because in every word, every word that you mention in that line,
it's a lifetime of study. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and so
I'm totally out of this field, and I'm learning and picking things up from working and with people like yourself and Erica and other people across the world, and it baffles me that, well, it doesn't baffle me. It's intriguing and inspiring to know that so many of the people I work with are like you. They're humbled by the work they do.
Oh, I love it.
Because there are so many questions
yeah.
to ask,
Oh,
not questions to answer. There are questions to ask, and that's why there's so much potential in this space.
Yep.
On a personal level, and just to tie things up, you clearly enjoy your job.
I love it.
Working with batteries at EG, at Redivivus.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole life has been about batteries.
Yeah.
Right. From a personal level, outside of all the companies and all the things you've done, what kind of contribution would you like to make to your field? Just personally.
Oh,
like, if you were not in any company, you could do what you want.
What we've been pushing really hard on is these solutions for stopping thermal runaway. Unfortunately, one side of my job is when there are fires, say that there's a home fire where there was an EV and the EV had nothing to do with it. However, once the EV is burned in the fire, it becomes the new hottest place of the fire. So that when a traditional fire forensics guy comes, they say, the EV was the source of the fire, because if you're reading the fire forensics book, it says look for the hottest parts of the fire, right? But it may be unrelated to that, and so we do forensics to help find the true cause of fires rather than things with batteries being unjustly blamed because during the fire the battery becomes the hot place, But as a result of that, I've had to see a lot of sadness of people's families' homes burned down, and thank God I've never gone to one where someone was killed. Been so blessed everybody survived every forensics event that I've ever attended. But in that course, I thought, man, if I could stop having to go to these events, because nobody wants to sift through ashes for a week looking for bits of melted copper and whatever. So anyways, it's been a passion for stopping thermal runaway, and we've developed different endothermic fillers in different potting resins that have incredible ability to clamp the thermal runaway spike. We do calorimetry where we do thermal runaway induced on different cells and quantify the joules of energy, the gas pressure released, and the species of gas released. And then once we know how many joules of energy we're looking at that we need to clamp, we can know how much filler and how much spacing between cells so that it can completely contain this runaway without reaching the activation energy for the adjacent cells to also go into thermal runaway, triggering a chain reaction.
And
where all
a
the
lot
cells
of it
burn.
is chain reaction, right? By the time
That's right.
something's observable from a human perspective, it's
That's right.
usually a chain is already
That's
started.
right. That's right. Whether
Right.
it was
Yeah.
one single tiny defect that started it, all
Yeah.
they see is a roaring bonfire coming at them,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so,
And
for these reasons, we've had really good success with. In fact, we actually don't have clients ship until they can pass the strictest of PPR tests. Now, what PPR means, passive propagation resistance. So we do multi-point thermal runaway, sometimes 5 3-inch nails, and this is on a 100% state of charge battery at preheated to full temperature too. We do group overcharged cell clusters, and it completely stops, complete cessation of thermal runaway without needing any firefighting, without needing any outside help. And the reason why that's a passionate thing for me is just because of the personal side of being the guy that has to deal with structure fires, finding causality when there happens to be something with a battery in there that burned. And so
that's a really noble drive, noble source of having a drive, and
thank you.
And I really respect that.
Thank you, my friend.
Just to
I also have another motivation that I've spent a lot of time working in Asia, you know, and I love the Ferris's factory and their whole team. Love Dr. Wong and Keith and the whole crew there, but you know, there's real air pollution that affects human quality of life, and I experienced it. I actually did a run. I did a 20-mile run one night when I had a long layover in Beijing, and I was coughing black out of my lungs, you know, and sinuses for a few days afterwards.
Wow.
And this was years in the past, before the Beijing Olympics, you know. But anyways, it was kind of a wake-up call to me that was like, wow, you know, whatever these particles are, I don't know how many are carcinogenic, mutagenic, or teratogenic, right? But many of the partial combustion compounds of hydrocarbons are carcinogenic. You know, you have benzene rings in there, which can mutate your DNA so your offspring have genetic birth defects, even if it didn't hurt you, like your kids are damaged. So, you know, do you want to expose yourself do you want to expose everyone in your city at a wide volume to these health effects, you know? And like, what's the cost of all the cancer treatments? You know, like, what's the cost in life and suffering, you know, and then money is, you know, as a secondary, right? Like, it's brutal.
That's a great place to end, because we all try to put our time, effort, energy into building or supporting others who build great solutions to help people, to help us go towards a better future. And I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Such a pleasure to ride with you.
Yeah.
You're a great rider too.
Thank you.
It's great to ride with you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think we can head back now to Redivivus and chat a bit more about what you guys are doing there.
Okay, sounds good. Right on. You know what's crazy, dude? The way that it works, and with our ability to observe atoms, you know, they're only this shadow when we image them through crystal lithography and X-ray diffraction, you know? But basically you just see these shadows, kind of like if we look at, like, you know, a distant moon of a planet or whatever, you know, we kind of just see this shadow, right? But here's the crazy thing. You know, our spread in our solar system and the relationship in our galaxy, and then galaxy clusters, we could actually be a component in the atom. Like, we could be part of someone's elbow or something, right? We could be an atom. Our whole solar system and universe and galaxy cluster could be all in a skin cell of someone, surrounded by trillions of other galaxy clusters, right?
Yep. And we don't, well,
it would be totally transparent to us. Just like how if, you know, there's like little mites that live in our eyelashes and stuff, right? And like, their whole world revolves around like this area to this area, right? It's like their entire universe. They don't know any universe outside that universe. And to them, it's utterly transparent if there even is a universe beyond that, you know? And that's kind of like how we're observing the world, you know? It's like, and when we try to understand reality, you know, it's like, you know,
our lives could mean so little.
Or so much.
Yeah.
It's perspective.
It is. And some guy decides to stretch his elbow and we're gone.
That's right. It really
just
could
see
be.
this finger coming down and like,
that's right. There's like, no way we could know that's not gonna happen, you know. And it could happen at any second. The sky just tears apart and like
giant finger.
Yeah, you have no idea. You know, there's another side to it too, that we could be the only divine spark of life in an entire sea of nothingness forever, right? Like, that's also an option, you know. we could be nothing, or we could be
Yep.
the only life. You know, like we have no idea right now.
Yep.
We know so little. Like
The extremity of that thought is weird, because you could be, in that sense, if we are the only thing around, well, we better make a lot of babies.
yeah, and
keep things going.
better keep our life support system on the spaceship we have working too. You know, I call it a spaceship because the Earth travels very quickly. You know, it's doing I think something like 400,000 miles an hour, but it's traveling through cosmic wind, and it has a shield generated by its magnetic. You know, we have a magnetic sphere that protects us. We have a heliosphere and a heliopause, but the Earth's magnetic sphere, the sun's magnetic field with the Earth's magnetic field makes this eddy current that generates a field because of the spinning of the Earth in relation to this magnetic field. It's a generator, just like an induction motor, you know. But without this magnetic shield, our atmosphere is blown away by cosmic wind, and we all, we have a sterile planet like all the other planets, right?
Yep.
We actually have a spaceship with an active magnetic shield system to keep us alive.
Yep.
And that is a special thing. You know, like, let's not blow it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not poison our life support that's under a shield to keep us in a blanket, you know. This is also crazy that if I've got a pool ball, you know, the Earth is smoother than a pool ball.
I've read that,
the highest and lowest points. But the atmosphere, so you think of this surface where the scratches are only so deep, right? You know, think of how shallow the scratches on not a beat up pool ball, a new one, a polished new one. Okay?
Yep.
It's very low scratches, right?
Yep.
Now think that when you go up to Everest, you're down to like 40% of the atmosphere remaining at Everest. So the 60% of the atmosphere that's all tied to our life support system so we can all breathe. You know, like every inhale and exhale, it's that life support system,
and that's
you know?
how thin. It's not even a shield.
Right.
It's like
That's
a
right.
spray coating.
That's right. You couldn't put a coat of paint on thin enough to represent the atmosphere that keeps us all alive.
That
and
is crazy.
there's a funny test you can do too, where you put people in this sealed room and you say, you know, I'm going to take away one thing from you, but if you can tell me it, then you pass the test, and I don't take it away from you. You know, it's like, I'm going to take away from you the thing that's most important to you right now in your life. You know, and they're like, oh God, like my wallet, my phone, you know, like my car keys, or like my house title, or whatever it is that they're worried about, right? And then you start sucking the air out of the room. And then suddenly the priorities shift, and they realize, wow, the most important thing for me and my life in this room is that the air is breathable.
Yep.